William actually arrived 2 hours ago. Hello, Garrett. Peter Tressler. Howdy. About 3.5 more minutes, and then we'll go on. Remember, everybody, that I'm constantly monitoring the chat, or at least I think I do. Which means that if you have any questions about anything that I'll be talking about during the show, you should write them down in the chat. There's a good chance that I might get to them. If I don't get to them, there's a lot of knowledgeable people that come to this stream, and somebody in the chat might answer your question. There's plenty of knowledgeable people here. I learned a lot from reading the chat. So place your questions in the chat. Just 2 more minutes and we'll get on. A lot of people ask me what it is that you're listening to and watching. This is just me goofing around on some Eurorack stuff in the middle of the night. Just recording. One pass, one shot, one kill. Sometimes half decent stuff comes around. I have a few of these. I should go through some of them and maybe switch it up. I have in the past. Nathan Kelly. Oh my goodness, Nathan Kelly is here. Now I'm nervous. Hi, Nathan. Brandon Braun says something is already curious about how you go about the kick sub-bass relationship, especially when it comes to envelopes. Well, I think we should start the show. Let's do it. Hello, party people. Welcome back. It's Friday again, 1 p.m. My name is Abe Duque. This is 343 TV you're watching. We are streaming Fridays, Saturdays, and sometimes on Tuesdays at 1 p.m. Today's show is my production basics show. Tomorrow, I think we have John Sully doing some techno, his Techno Saturday show. And from time to time, we have Tetro doing Tetro Talks. I think it's every other week that we do Tetro Talks on Tuesdays. But yeah, welcome back. I've been having a lot of fun doing these shows lately. You guys have been really kind of egging me on and getting me really hyped about the show. There was a lot of people already in the chat. I mean, I've been mentioning him during the pre-roll here. Oh, Max Wild is here. Look at that. Max Wild saying hello to Nathan Kelly, which makes me nervous to know that he's watching. Now, Nathan's a good old friend of mine. Back from the early 343 days, or the earlier 343 days. Yeah, lots of people in here. William Mindreaders wins the award for the first person on the chat today. In the waiting for the stream to begin. He was here about 2 hours ago. Garrett is here. Peter is here. Alessandro is here, and yeah, a bunch of other people that haven't sort of chatted in yet. I was mentioning earlier in the pre-roll that if you have questions, I'm going to be doing a little bit of mixing today. So if you have any questions, please throw the questions in the chat, because I'm trying very hard to monitor the chat and to make sure that I get to everybody's concerns as we're going through. But even if I don't catch it, there's so many talented people in the chat, so many people that know so much that you'll get your answer. Somebody will definitely hook you up with an answer. Lots of really cool people. And like I said earlier, I always learn just from watching and reading the chat myself. So let's get this going. What are we doing today? Well, let's go directly to Ableton. So what I have today set up for you guys is, it's a track we've been working on maybe a month ago or two. We wrote it on the stream in real time. We played all the parts. Oh, I wrote it. I like to say we, because we're all a team or whatever. But yeah, we wrote it on the chat. On the chat, we wrote it on the chat. That's funny. No, we wrote it on the stream, and we played all the parts in. We mixed a bit of it. We kind of produced it. We didn't really arrange it, but I spent some time off camera arranging it, maybe earlier today, and got a bit of an arrangement going. I think a good enough arrangement to call it an arrangement. It's about 2.5, 3 minutes long right now, and it kind of represents what the track is going to be doing. But let me play you the track. Maybe you remember it. Let me play you what we're working with today. Here we go. The arrangement, and here's the session view. I don't know which view to show you. Delirious House. And you might remember me recording myself saying Delirious House, goofing around as always. Note the percussion that's in there. In house music, you get a lot of percussion going on. It almost makes the track. Percussion has to be very kind of organic as well. Can't be too repetitive. So I have some bongos coming in now. This just gave it like a organic percussive feel. Brendan Braun says groove tables. I'm not sure what groove tables means.
Delirious. Delirious house.
And then it switches up a bit here with another bass line and another main part. All these parts, if you recall, we recorded them. I think I brought out my Korg Poly 800 and recorded a lot of the main parts with that. I think the 303 is, of course, the bass line. All right, so groove tables inside the piano roll. I know what you mean now. We're talking about the grooves that Ableton offers you. Yeah, that's one thing that you should definitely be exploring. Just switching up the way that the drums present, just to give you that flavor that I was talking about earlier. Yes, Brandon Braun says you can assign swing from things like the MPC or the old Logic, or also the Akai. Sorry, not the Akai, the SP1200. All those grooves are stored in Ableton in the groove pool. Well, you can create a groove pool with all those, but you get a lot of presets. Okay, so that's it. It just kind of looped around now. So let's get to mixing a bit. So I'm going to pretend that somebody just sent me this track. Now I did a little bit of pre-mixing during the production stage of it, but what am I going to do if I get a track to begin with? Well, I always tell my students that important it is to know what the track should be sounding like. So what that means is, if you're mixing for somebody else, please do yourself a favor and request as many reference tracks as you can, because in the reference track you'll be able to understand what the client, let's call him the client, wants you to do, and understand whether the client is correct about what he or she is asking you to do, or are they crazy? Because sometimes, a lot of the times, you get clients that are people that want you to mix their track, which are very, have an unrealistic sort of expectation of what will happen in the mixing process. This I run into a lot, and if you're going to be mixing for somebody else, you really need to make sure that everything is clear. That if you see that or hear that their track is not going to be able to make it to get to what their reference track is going to be like, just because you'd have to change the production completely to make that happen, that you state that clearly. So reference track's very important. But now you've got the reference track and you understand what it should sound like. When you're working for yourself, reference tracks are still important, just to kind of keep you, honest about where you want to go with your track. But if you have a good feel about what your sound is like, and you have a good feel for the room that you're in, or maybe the headphones that you've been working with, reference tracks become a little less important than when you're working for somebody else. God forbid that you should go off and do a job for somebody and not have this conversation before about how it should sound. Because everybody has a different sort of take on what good aesthetic is, and it's so subjective and it's so personal, the opinion that you can get from somebody. You might like a lot of bass, and somebody might not like as much bass as you do. I hope that that's not the case, but okay. But anyway, so let's go on. So I'm gonna maybe then start to put the tracks together and listen to them, and see what what we're working with. So of course I started out with the bass, so I'm going to get these bass and look at the kick drum. Now I like the kick drum, and I already did a bit of pre-mixing back in the times when I started to, when I actually recorded this in straight from the 909. Actually, I added a little bit of Pultec and some Neve 1073. The Pultec for the low end, and you know that if you visited this show or the stream, you know that I really love Pultec EQ for low end, and in the air that the 1073 is going to give me. So basically, without these two, this is sounding like this, and with it, it's coming to life a little more. The air, I'm going to exaggerate it just to get you to understand what's happening there, but I'll pull back to about a decent place. Now, I gave it a good amount at 30 hertz, a boost with the Pultec, but I am of the belief now that it wasn't enough, that I should have gone a little bit more with the low end. So I'm going to go all the way to 5 to give it some, maybe a little bit past 5 actually, to give it some, and you see me turning the boost and the attenuate at the same time. Attenuate means cut, so this EQ is supposed to boost and cut, but it was meant to boost and cut individually, but most engineers went crazy and started to boost and cut at the same time. And you know the reason, I've explained it many times, it's that the boost, let's say it's 30 hertz, it boosts 30 hertz, and the cut isn't cutting the same 30 hertz, it's actually cutting a little bit ahead of the 30 hertz, so it makes a kind of a slanted kind of tilt sort of pattern that sounds very nice and makes it very tight, the low end. That's kind of the magic to the Pultec EQ, but I'm going to add a little more. And what I usually do, rule of thumb for me, is that as much as I boost, I cut. So that's kind of where I start, and then I tweak from there. But let's see what that sounds like without the Pultec. Yeah, so see, a lot of that really nice low end came in. And I could probably use a little more, but here I get into the territory where I always have to tell myself, don't be greedy, because I might pay for it later by being greedy. So I'll just, I'll leave it like that for now, and then listen to maybe the bass and see what that sounds like together with. Sounding great kind of together. Let's see what we got going on here. I have an EQ. No, I have a compressor, a glue compressor, kind of lazy glue compressor, more Pultec, making that really bassy, which is really what I want. And I cut the high end on it because I didn't want all that bright stuff on the top. Sometimes you just want low rumbly bass, which is good. But I'm going to take a little bit of compression to do the kind of sidechain compression to the kick, just a little bit, just to kind of clear up who's in charge here. Basically, the sidechain compression you do to like make sure that one element has more clarity over the other. And I have a ghost kick already right here, sitting on the corner here, and I'm going to do it to the ghost kick so that we get some action to the ghost kick. There's the ghost kick going, but it's on the actual 303 part, or the bassline part. So I'm gonna lower this until I really hear it going on. I'm gonna go infinity to 1 just to be super obvious. It's good to be obvious so you guys could hear what I'm actually doing here. Frank L asked me, do I start most mixes with kick drum and bass? Yes, I actually very much do. Everything from leveling, which I've kind of pre-leveled this already before we started. If I'm gonna just, let's say I bring everything down, I'm just gonna start, getting levels going. I'm gonna find first of all like the kick or the bass, whichever. It's like if it's an 808, I might do the 808, but if it's a kick and a bass, I might just do the kick. But then I'll find the level on the kick that is going to be pretty low comparatively. So right now, I don't know what the level is. I'm peaking out at negative 5.6. I've had to raise it as I've been mixing, but I probably started at -8 with the kick, and then when I have that going, I'll use that as sort of a guiding star for the rest of the mix, meaning that I'll have the bass now work to the mix, and then I'll just kind of bring in all the elements that are in mono, like the snare, maybe if there's a vocal. All of those will kind of come together. But the kick bass combination, especially in a house music track, is probably the most important thing that you can get sorted before you go forward. Because if that is working, if that is tight, and that's your groove, that's your cornerstone, that's your foundation of your mix. So you don't really want to you don't want to wait too long to get that taken care of. So we're doing that now. So we have a lot of sidechain compression going on here now. Let's see how it sounds like without it. But I hope you could hear the pump. There's another line. I'm going to play the other line just to see if how that one reacts to this. That one reacts a lot heavier to it since it is a held out line. See, that one has. So I got to be careful. I'm not going to do too much crazy sidechain compression here. I just want to have the clarity appear a little better, meaning just truly the ducking technique that this is referring to. So this, you can use this technique to just really duck one thing out of the other's way. So when the kick comes, the bass comes out of the way. Or you could use it to do something more radical with it, which means, make that kind of pumping French house sort of feeling happen with, the bass or any part really in the mix. I'm not looking for that right now with this. I'm just looking for them to play nice together. So I'm just gonna, and I think they're playing rather nice with each other. So I'm gonna bring in the rest of the parts, or let's see what happens. So these parts come in kind of sequentially anyway. So, do you ever do top-down mixing? Top-down mixing, please explain what you mean by top-down mixing. Would you also sidechain a low tom if there was one in the mix? I would sidechain anything that I feel gets in the way of the clarity of the kick for that reason. And for that reason, you can think of sidechaining not only as a thing you do to the kick, but something that you do to an element that should have priority over another element. So if you have, like, say, a guitar, a organ, and the vocals, and they're all kind of in the same part of the frequency spectrum, and the vocal is suffering from the masking that the guitar and the organ are doing, you might want to sidechain the guitar and the organ to the vocals so that when the vocals, out, it brings everything else down. Okay, let's see. Or does it depend on where it lands in the frequency? It always depends on where it lands in the frequency. But for clarity reasons, the biggest fight is probably going to be down here between the kick and the bass. All right, let's keep on moving. So I've kind of pre-mixed a lot of these things, pre-leveled them at least. But let's look at them for, like in this case of this snare. Let me just play it here. This snare needed DQ to just roll off the very, very low end part of this, because look, it had very, very low end stuff on it. I don't really need that much low end on a snare. I mean, it's nice to have a thick snare, but let's look at the hi-hat and see what it's doing as far as EQ. So same story maybe. Oh, not really. Yeah, there's some. Wait, I'm looking at the wrong thing. Let me turn that back on. Turn that off. I don't even think I have any EQ on there. I just have a Oxford inflator, I think. The Oxford inflator is going to help that kind of pop out. It's a good saturator. But let's add an EQ to that and see where we go with this. So let's grab that EQ8. I usually try to use a better EQ, but a lot of people, don't have fancier stuff. But look at what's happening with this hi-hat. Like hi-hats, you really thinking about high, right? And you do like the chunk in these 909 hi-hats, but they do have a little too much going on down here. So a little bit of a cut. And let's see how far we can cut without like losing the spirit of this recording. So right around here, there's that fence that that really determines the difference between the sound that you kind of recorded and the sound that, you know, becomes when you cut out too much of the low end. So let's get some of those hi-hats going in here. And I think I could get away with a good cut. Now, every time I find the fence, I call it the fence, I always pull back a little more just to be on the safe side. So I would say that 80 hertz is not a bad cut for these hi-hats, because you're going to feel it being girthy enough. You're going to have enough, but they're not going to be adding to all the gunk down here, all that low end stuff that could really hurt the kick and the bass. Let's do it with the clap. Same thing. See if the clap has some stuff going on. Not much, but still. Let's go a little bit higher, just to be thorough, you know, cleaning it up. And see that organ sort of sound. Where is that? It's called this. Let's see what that looks like under. Let's go back. So yeah, look, this one has so much stuff down here. We already have a bass and we already have a kick drum. If it's nice to have really low subby stuff on the organ, but we don't really need that for that. We want to keep some of it, so we're gonna, you know, not roll off too low. Let's try 40 hertz and see what that sounds like with 37 hertz. And that to me is okay. Freddie says, that's a cool rhythm, Abe. Have a good day, everybody. All right, so see, that works for me, and that cuts out all the gunk, the really low end gunk. But I really don't want to mess with that fundamental there, so I'm going to pull it back just a little more. So I'm really doing maybe just a 25 hertz cut there, but still, any savings is appreciated.
Delirious.
See those vocals. Delirious House.
Delirious House.
Same story there. I could probably get up to maybe 60 hertz with that. 53 hertz, and I think I'm good with that. Let's see. Audible video. Woot, Abe. Okay. Not bad there. So note some things that I did. I did some interesting percussion here. I recorded it looks like a lot more than it's playing now, right? You know my thing about just using what you need, and I really just used that little bit right there. And then on this one that I call block hit, I did the same thing where I just used that one there. So these two kind of are together. I could maybe group them together. And just to be thorough, I will group them together, because they kind of represent one thing. And I'm just going to drop an EQ real quick on there, and my EQ is already set up with a 20 hertz cut. So look at that has a lot of gunk down there, and I'm going to pull it up a little bit. So again, I'm trying to make more space and more clarity for the low end, so that I could, when it comes to mastering this thing, I could really go nuts with, like, you know, pumping that low end and getting it very loud and very clear and still dynamic. You know, that's the idea. Dynamics, preserving dynamics if you can. This is what the name of the game is right now. So I recorded this bongo just before the show to make that kind of organic bongo stuff happen in our house music track there. But look at the stuff that's happening down here. It's still doing that stuff. Let's see how far we can get with this. Let's go back. So good point there from Brandon Braun. Now I've just cut that where I want it, about the low end and possible phasing at 100 hertz. We'll leave so many elements below 100 hertz because of phasing. Yes, it's true that they could not only introduce extra low end that would be getting involved with like making the clarity less on the kick and the bass drum combination. They can even do something more insidious. Oh, look, Donica Becker's here. Great. They could also do something more insidious, which is they could add that low end, but it could be out of phase. So not only does it, one possible bad scenario is that it adds low end and it muddies up the low end, but another possible bad scenario is that it adds low end and it phases out what you have already. So kind of working really against what you're doing. So not good. That way, it's a good idea to cut it. Matter of fact, I'm going to go in here and to the kick, for example, this is good form. I do this all the time. I'm going to go and I'm going to grab a utility, and the utility has a bass mono setting here, which is going to cut under 120 hertz any stereo material, keeping the low end very, very mono. But that's what you need to set it up right, especially on low end material. I'll do the same thing for the 303. Low end, anything under 120 hertz is going to stay in the center. It's not going to be on the sides. Now, if there's material on the sides of it, like on the mids and on the high end, that's in stereo, fine. Let's let that go. Let that ride. That's all good. Okay, so that's done. Let's see what else we have. Oh, we have that one really kind of grimy sort of part. What do we call it? It's a group. It's this group, and I haven't called it anything. Let's just call it grime something. And let's play it. And so I have a filter on it that I'll work later, but what I want is to do the same thing with maybe an EQ. Like, this is a bass part and it should be bassy, so I can't cut it too high, but really the very, very low end, since this is house music and it's 4 on the floor, I'm really gonna do my best to like clear it up. So a little bit of that. You see all that grime down there? Right now this is set to 20 hertz, and you can set your EQ on your DAW to come in the way you want to see it. Every time I drop in an EQ8, it's always going to come in with a high pass filter set up at about 20 hertz, because that's a very efficient initial cut to do. And then you could set it and then save it as your default preset. And by the way, oversampling please on your EQs. Anyway, here we go. So just a little bit of cutting there. I'm going to do some enhancer EQ while I have this here. Maybe I'll grab one of my favorite EQs, the API 560. You guys seen me use it before? And that thing will let me really mold this thing. So with this, this is the high end. Let's see where. So yeah, I see how I could. So I usually start at the high end, decide if I need more air. Do I need more of that? No, I don't really need more of that. I have plenty of that. And that's not that interesting to push. But this starts to make it a little more interesting to push. Not that much, so I'll just be a little bit with it. But that really brings out the body of what it's trying to say. I love this thing. This thing is just so delicate and delicious when you grab that perfect little frequency. So just pop that up a little bit. Yeah, I could do a little bit of that, but more of the red one. The red one, what is that? 1K. That's where it's at. And if I wanted to, let me back it up. So if I wanted to, I could give it some more bass. A little bit of that. It's a little too rumbly there. That rumble, I like this rumble here. This rumble is higher than the cut that we've made, so it'd be a nice thing to accentuate on. Might not push the 31 hertz because that might be pushing too much. But now let's listen to it with and without it. Look at that. It doesn't seem like it's doing much, this thing, but put it in there, it just comes to life. Yeah, Brandon Braun says it has more character than Ableton EQ by 100 times more. Ableton EQ, okay, it's a nice EQ, but the truth is, it's okay for reductive, whatever you can do with reductive. But if you're trying to do additive, it's really not that cool. This thing is very cool, and it adds saturation to it, and it's like perfectly curated bands with the crossovers, like delicious crossovers on this. This is really, if I had to choose one EQ to go be on a desert island with, this would be it. The API 560. You can get it from a lot of places. I think Waves has a sale on these sometimes. You can get them for like $22 or something like that. Anyway, that's really good. Let's see what else I could. And now it's a little loud. I'm gonna pull it back a little bit. It came out so much. All right, let's go back to the arrangement. Just listen a little bit and see if there's anything else that we can do in here. So these two guys, I'm gonna pan them a little left and a little right, because one goes one way and the other one goes the other way. This one feels like it could come up a little bit more. See what happens if I put the fake 560 on this thing. Actually, I'm gonna nix the 560. I'm gonna try that Neve 1073. I just maybe think it needs a little more air. That's my air machine. I love the air that the 1073 can give you. And the thing about this is just raise this and let's see how much we can use. Let's go back a little. Listen to that. Just without it, all the way with it. Just add a little detail to the top. Doesn't make it trill, doesn't make it too bright. It just adds air. It's beautiful. And that'll cut much better in the mix. Oh yeah. Brandon Braun wants to know what is my favorite filter plugin.
Delirious.
Brandon uses Waldorf Dipole because it has much character. I like the there's the multi-mode filter, the Moog multi-mode filter that Universal Audio has. That sounds really close, and actually in some ways more usable than the actual multi-mode filter. And that'd be the filter that's on this synth here. Really nice filter. I don't hate the Ableton auto filter, especially if you start experimenting with the other modes and you add some saturation to it, or drive, which is going to increase the saturation. Yeah, hear that ripping now that we did that API on that grime thing. The thing is. Anyway, by the way, while this plays, you're watching 343 TV. My name is Abe Duque. I'm an instructor at 343 Labs. 343 Labs is our school. We have schools in New York City, we have a school in Berlin, and we teach online. So if you're interested to take classes with us, visit our website. Maybe you could have me as your instructor, or John, or one of our many talented instructors to teach you Ableton, Logic, sound design, mixing and mastering, composition. Visit our website. You might like what you see. This is how we pay the bills. But if you like what you see, and please, if you like what you see, please give me a like, because it'd be nice to impress my friends, I always say, with how many likes I'm getting from you guys. Okay, so I'm kind of liking where we're at right now, and for the lack of time, I'm gonna say we're in a good place. It sounds like pretty well mixed right now. I did do a little bit of pre-mixing before we started. So it did, it is in a good place altogether. There's not that many elements, and that's one of the keys to getting a great mix is that when you don't have a million elements, the track is easier to mix. And when you use something like a 909, the mixing is going to be a lot easier. But there is nothing right now on the master. I have nothing on the master channel, on the chain. And why not? Let's go and master this thing. I don't recommend that you master a track until it's done. A lot of people work into a mastering chain. They put their mastering chain in there first, and then start to make tracks to the mastering chain while it's in there. I kind of don't like doing it like that. I like making it sound as good as it can, and without anything on the chain, and then seeing how much better it can get if you start adding master chain components to it. So let's see. Let's start. So the first thing that we're gonna do always for me is that I'm gonna come in there and grab a utility and bass mono that thing again. Bass mono is gonna ensure that there is no stereo in the subs, which could cause phase cancellations in a room if that's happening. So we're gonna do that. That's a quick, easy move. It may help a lot or may just not help at all, but it doesn't hurt at all to have it in there. So it's just the first thing that I'm gonna do. I'm gonna grab some better EQ maybe to start doing the rest of the work. I could do this with the Ableton EQ, but let's go to some FabFilter stuff. I do like this FabFilter Pro Q3. I think it's everybody should have it. Let's see, where's my Pro Q3? There it is. And I don't work for FabFilter. I'm not trying to get you to buy it. Matter of fact, I'm kind of angry at them because they won't even help me get a license. I had to get my license by other means than having them give it to me. All right, so the whole track you can see has some very low stuff going on there, and I might not touch that if this was like a jazz track or a classical music track or even a trap music track, because you want those organic very, very lows. But in house music, when you have a kick drum and a bass doing this kind of relentless dance with each other and battling each other, I think it pays off 100% to clear out the low end, the very subby, non-audible low end, so that we can actually have a better time at trying to mix these two components together. So we're gonna do that. And it doesn't hurt to track. If you had a sub pack on, or had a subwoofer system, you might be able to, and you were blasting it, you might be able to somehow tell a little bit that some of the low rumble that you could only feel in your chest and in your hairs on your body and not in your ears would be gone. But it's a good sacrifice to make in order to make the clarity happen between kick and bass. And in house music, kick and bass combination is the song. So let's go on with this and let's go find some resonances. Now, there's one important resonance that I always look for in dance music, or pretty much anything. It's around 200 hertz, and you can hear that ringing now already. And you hear that ringing. That ringing, I'm gonna back it up. You hear that ringing? That's the stuff that you always want to get rid of. You always want to look around 200 hertz. It's not exactly 200 hertz. It's right now 204, but it could be a little lower than 200 or a little bit higher than 200. Doesn't matter. It's always there, and it always makes for more boxiness in your track, which is something that you might not want to have. So let's pull back down on that. How far can we go with that? That's ridiculous, but let's just relieve the pressure. don't think you need to eliminate frequencies. People say, don't you want to use sometimes a notch filter? I'm not a big user of notch filters because unless I'm trying to do something in synthesis, notch filters are way too heavy-handed for this type of job. Okay, so maybe we find another resonance somewhere, but it don't have to have another resonance.
Delirious.
Let's go back and find something that rings all the time, no matter what note is being played. And that was just that chord doing that. You gotta make sure that it's not something that's playing notes that's making it ring. What you're looking for is a ring that doesn't go away no matter what you play. What exactly does boxiness mean? Well, I'll tell you what boxiness means. Okay, there's a little bit of ringing there, but what I mean is what this would do to your mix. It's not boxy, but it's kind of this kind of bloated, tight,
Delirious.
ugly bass, not mid-range, that really is going to be not complementary to your track. That's what I mean by boxy. So get rid of that. And look at that. Look at so much relief. You can enjoy the low end much better. Which fab filter do you recommend, since there's so many different versions they sell? What would you be the first one you would recommend to buy? The EQ, Pro Q3. You could do quite a lot with that. You could do with you could do with a de-esser. You could do dynamic EQ. You could so multiband is not necessary. I think if you could only buy one plugin from them, it's the Pro Q3. You could do so much with it. And then the next plugin that I would buy is probably the Pro L, the limiter. And if I wanted to buy a pack, I would buy the Pro Pack because it has all the mixing plugins. Anyway, let's go on, and I'm gonna hit it with a de-esser now because from the frequencies like 2K and above, I do like to use a de-esser to work those, just because they're too it's easy for your ears to catch stuff that's above like 3K and so on. So just lowering the level of something is gonna make a hole, and it's gonna be too obvious. So I'm just gonna look for anything that's shrill right now. I found it between 7 and 9 hertz. Make sure that I don't, always take it out. I can raise that threshold so it's just at the edge of where the sound is coming. This is what I'm actually removing. I'm going to put a little bit of oversampling on there, and basically I'm just trying to remove some of that harshness that could come from okay. Alright, so that's done. Now let's go to the next thing. Now usually when I'm mastering, maybe sometimes I like to do a little bit of initial bus compression, and there's a couple of cool bus compressors that I like. I mean, we could always talk about using the Ableton glue, but let's grab something different than that. Let's grab the API 2500. That's a pretty good choice for this. Okay, I don't want it to be too at work here, so I'm gonna get that needle moving just a little bit, lower that threshold to 1.5 because I really don't want it to compress as much as I want it to pick up the harmonics of running it through the circuitry. Make it a very lazy attack and a very fast release as well. And really just, right now it's cutting, it's going up maybe 2 or 3 dB, so I'm going to add 3 dB here to just give you an idea. This is how much gain reduction is going on, right? So just give you an idea what it's sounding like. I'm going to lower that after again because I wanted the headroom to come back. So that's without it. And that's with it. And that's compensating for the gain reduction that's happening. But now I'm decompensated. I've taken it down and the sound is still there of it. It's just quieter now. But that's okay because I need when I do some mastering, I need to have every time a little more. Every subsequent VST or plugin that you put in there, it needs to have headroom to play with. If you put a hot signal into one of these plugins, it's not going to do any good because it needs to have that place to move. Yes, Jim Jones asked if this is on the master. Yes, it says on the master. We're working on the master right now. All right, so let's keep it going. So a little bit of initial bus compression. Now initial EQ, and I'm going to go straight for, my old friend the Pultec. Now we used quite a lot of Pultec already in the mix, but who cares? Let's add more. So let's add a little bit of this. 30 hertz is for house music. 30 hertz is my go-to. Sometimes I need 60, but 30 hertz I think will do a good job. And you can see how that kind of, the floor just got really, the low floor just got raised there, and I'll tighten it up with the attenuation here. And let's take that off. That's amazing, actually. If you got some good speakers or some good headphones, put them on right now and listen to this difference. I'm gonna back it up over here. Check this out. That's everything, and not only the bass. Everything is just picking up more girth. Now you don't want to go nuts. You don't want to go here. Although I could if I wanted to. Okay, that would be ridiculous if I did this. But just giving you an idea of what the type of bass that this thing adds. It's just insane. Okay, we're gonna back off though. We're gonna go to about 4 and change here. And then turn it off so you could hear what it's sounding like. That's nice. I kind of like the way the whole thing sounds, so I'm not gonna grab an API 560 to mold it anymore, but I am going to grab the Neve 1073 to give it some more air. I love air. I think air is probably one of my favorite things to do in mixing is add air. I had a mixing class that ended not too long ago, and the student said, one of the most important things I learned is how important air is. Like, yeah, it really is. Check this out. I'm going to exaggerate, and I'm going to back off after that. Okay, that's super exaggerated, but look at the type of stuff that I'm talking about. Now, of course, I'm not going to keep that much. I'm just going to keep maybe that much. And I turn it off. See the life it breathes into it? Okay, so leave that in there. I think that's enough for enhanced EQ right now. I don't want to put tape saturation or anything on it because I don't need it to be warmer than it is right now. I got recorded analog. All the sounds most of these sounds, I think all of them came from my 909, the 303, the Poly 800, the Moog I think I had in there. So analog was already, all over the place on this. I don't necessarily need it more saturated. It sounds pretty nice already. So I'm gonna go to, maybe I'll grab the Sonics Inflator. How about that? The Sonics Inflator, I'll do this a good. So I think it's called the Oxford Inflator in here. So it's the Oxford Sonics Inflator. This thing is sick. So Audible Video says, how much do you EQ the high end of the hats to prevent fatigue? The problem with EQing the high end of the hats is that most people, don't realize where the fatigue is. The fatigue for the hi-hats is going to be somewhere between, if I have to pick a shorter spot, maybe 5 to 11K or 7 to 11K. That's where the hi-hat fatigue is going to be when you add too much in that range, 5 to 11K. After that, 12, 13 and above, it's air, and it doesn't really fatigue you at all. We are very sensitive. The resonant frequency of the ear canal is 3,700 hertz. So around the mid-range and the high mid-range and the hi-hats is where the most sibilance will occur, and that's very fatiguing. Does adding air put some of that back? Adding air just adds that and not the sibilance area. That's why I add air, because it doesn't really, make the sibilance go up. So let's add some of this oxygen flare. Let's go over here, and with this thing, you just kind of pump it. Just add a little bit of it. But as you can see, I'm already kind of almost running out of headroom here. This guy is lowered just for your sake, and I've actually got a little bit of red going on in here. Lower this a little bit so we can hear each other. So what I'm going to do is out of the Neve, I'm going to lower it some in order to give the Oxford inflator some room to operate in. So you really do have to do that. If you have a output on your plugin, if you're pushing it a lot into that plugin, lower the output so that the next plugin, you're being polite to the next plugin is what you're being. Alternatives to the inflator, yes. John Selway put me onto this the other day. There is if you have Ableton, the saturator in soft sine mode is very close to what the Oxford inflator does. But problem is you don't push it more than 2 dB because you'll start distorting it quickly. But 1 or 2 dB soft sine saturator, it's not going to be exactly the Oxford inflator, but so close that you might not want to buy one. Just saying. So now let's see. Got this going, and I could drive this more now. See, before I couldn't get it more because I had red going, but now I could drive it more. Okay, let's turn that off to show you the difference. Oh well, let's do it when things are playing. See how it just pumps it up? Okay, me liking it. Let's deal a little bit with imaging at this point. Let's deal a little bit with some, let's get an imager going in here. Isotope. Imager. Where is it? There we go. Maybe this is right. I hope it's not the 5 that I picked. I have a 5 and the 7. 7 would be better. Oh, this is 5, and I don't have the the authorization for this one. I'll put it in demo, but I'm not going to use this one. I'm going to get rid of it. I need to have this 7 imager. I think it's this one here. There it is. That one works. And basically, I just want to test what things are doing in stereo spectrum. And why is it not working? Oh, I put it in the wrong place. Look at that. I'm silly here. I didn't put it on my master channel. Let's go to the master channel and drop it in here. Okay, let's bass looks pretty tight. This, if the bass was going all over the place, I'd know there'd be more stereo in the low end. And this is 140 and below, and it's pretty tight. I like to see that way. Let's go to the next band, which is going to be like 140 to 2K. And this is where I actually like to push some stereo a lot of the time. Just to spruce it up. See how that was nice. That really was nice, especially with those organy stabs there. This is okay. We could push this. I don't tend to push it as much as this frequency. And then the same thing goes for this last frequency. It's just air, stereo air, which okay, I like stereo air, but I don't want to get it too sibling. Okay, we're getting now this is a pretty intense chain. I have a lot of stuff in there, but believe it or not, when I'm actually mastering for people, I could be spending an hour, with all different combinations and all different strategies. I'm going about it kind of a one way right now, but time is of the essence here. So I'm gonna grab something that if Nathan is there, he'll know. But Nathan hooked me up with this, the Magic Death Eye, and it's a compressor, a bus compressor based off of the Fairchild 670. The cool thing about it is that it has this 150 hertz filter, which means it doesn't touch anything under 150 hertz. So you can push this thing. Now I'm running out a little bit of headroom here, so I'm gonna lower the output on the one before so I can keep some headroom. See, a little more headroom than that. Okay. And this thing is not even compressing yet. Let's get it to compress. There we go. Push it. And you basically try between 1 and 2. These are the ones that are good for music. Yes, Nathan Kelly is still there. Thank you, Nathan. And let's get this. Now you could put it in the secret mode where this comes up. This is actually another mode that's supposed to be secret. Easy enough to find though. I kind of like the secret mode. So let's keep it there. And then final thing on my chain is going to be my Pro L. And let's see, I have a modern one. I'm liking the modern a lot. I mean, it's not that, you can't change it too much, but it just does kind of what it needs to do. I'm going to set this output here to go to negative 0.3, the ceiling I mean. Negative 0.3 ceiling, and just bouncing a little bit above negative 6. Now, a lot of the producers out there might push it more than that, maybe even to like negative 4 or negative 3. I'm okay. I'm good. I still like my dynamics in my mixes. Okay, a little more. Let's push it, but let's increase the look ahead so that it doesn't distort. Look ahead is how a limiter keeps from distorting. By the way, if you like what you're seeing, first of all, give me a like, because I always like to impress my friends with the amount of likes I get. The other thing, subscribe to our channel. That's another thing. Where are we right now? 26.9. Let's get 27. That would be great. 27K would be awesome. And the other thing is, this is the stuff that I do in my classes. So I do a lot of the mixing and mastering classes at 343. If you take a class with me, whether it be online or in person, we could be doing this with your track, and you could be learning how to do this and get as good as I am with it, or with any of the other super talented instructors we have. So please come and take a class with us. Visit our website, check out our class schedule. There's always something starting soon. Please come and check it out. And don't forget about 343 Studio. 343 Studio is our, I like to call it our dojo for music producers. It's where we kind of work our chops out, and we get better and we refine our trade, our skills. We have mentoring sessions, feedback sessions, collaboration sessions, master classes. We have something that I actually call the Ableton Dojo, where we go in there and just kind of do Ableton for a while. Anyway, does 343 allow you to choose which instructor? Can you can someone sign up directly with your class? Yeah, you could find out if you call. You could ask who's teaching a particular class, and maybe you want to take a class with Dane because you're into like bass music and trap, or you want to take a class with John Selway because he does amazing techno. Let me stop this. Or if you want to take a class with me or any of the other brilliant instructors that we have, both in Berlin and in New York, you could request and see when their classes are coming up and take it with them. We won't change out the instructor just because you want that instructor to be your teacher on a certain date and time, but we'll accommodate when we can. Anyway, Simple Sam says he didn't even feel like a Friday today. Well, I hope it felt like a Sunday morning, Simple Sam. That's the only better time I could imagine. Anyway, with that, time has eaten us up now. We have to kind of end the show. I had a great time today. We'll do more of this. I think I like this. I like being able to, we've started tracks in the past. I'm going to bring them up to this level and then mix them with you and, master them and maybe write a little more and do, and talk about things that we all love to talk about and hear about. Great action in the chat today. Thank you, everybody. Remember, hit the like button, please. And I'll see you next Friday, I guess, at the same time, 1 p.m. Bye-bye now.